For many African Americans, the United States has long been called home. But in recent years, a powerful and deeply emotional shift has begun. Thousands are no longer just dreaming of Africa, they're acting. They're selling their homes, packing their bags, and buying one-way tickets to Ghana. And this isn't a vacation, it's an exodus. The question that's on everyone's mind is simple. Why? At first glance, it might seem like a bold move, even drastic. After all, the United States is one of the wealthiest nations on earth. But for a growing number of Black Americans, wealth isn't the only measure of home. Safety, dignity, connection, peace, these are the currencies they're now seeking, and they're finding them not in New York, Atlanta, or Los Angeles, but in Accra, Kumasi, and Cape Coast. The story doesn't start today. It stretches back centuries into the painful legacy of slavery, colonization, and a long history of Black people being treated as second-class citizens. In the land they helped build, the American dream was never promised to everyone equally. And for many, that dream has slowly eroded into a nightmare of police brutality, systemic racism, cultural erasure, and generational trauma. But Ghana is offering something different. In 2019, Ghana launched an ambitious campaign called the Year of Return. It was more than a tourism project, it was a global call to the African diaspora. The message was simple yet powerful. You were taken from here. Now you are welcome to return. The initiative commemorated for 100 years since the first recorded. Enslaved Africans were brought to North America in 1619. Ghana, a key departure point during the transatlantic slave trade, chose to turn pain into purpose. The campaign was wildly successful. Celebrities like Steve Harvey, Ludacris, and Boris Kodjoe visited Ghana. So did thousands of regular people. What many expected to be a cultural journey turned into something far deeper. A spiritual awakening. People cried as they stood at the door of no return in Cape Coast Castle. They wept as they touched the soil their ancestors once walked. For the first time in generations, many African Americans felt seen, heard, and whole. But it didn't end there. Some visitors didn't want to leave. The real movement began when those tourists became residents. They started buying land, building homes, opening businesses. Families relocated. Retirees shifted their final chapters. Young entrepreneurs brought their talents to Ghana. Teachers, nurses, artists, digital nomads, people from all walks of life made the leap. What began as a cultural visit became a permanent migration. And behind every relocation lies a personal story. Take Ayana, for example, a 32-year-old school teacher from Chicago. After experiencing repeated microaggressions at work and fearing for her teenage son's safety during routine traffic stops, she felt exhausted. "I just couldn't breathe in America anymore," she says. "Every day felt like a battle to prove I mattered. When I visited Ghana, something changed. People saw me for me, not as a threat, not as a statistic, just as a human being." Or Darren, a retired Navy veteran who settled near the Volta region. "I served this country for over 2 decades," he explains. "And yet, back home, I was always a Black man first and an American second. Here in Ghana, I walk in peace. No one clutches their purse when I walk by. No one calls the police because I'm standing in the wrong neighborhood. I finally feel free." These aren't isolated stories. They're part of a wider emotional current, a quiet revolution rooted in the desire for healing, identity, and sovereignty. But make no mistake, this movement isn't about escaping America out of hate. It's about choosing Africa out of love. Love for ancestors, love for legacy, love for self. One of the most powerful pull factors is the sense of belonging. In America, despite generations of contribution and resilience, many African Americans still feel like outsiders. Their roots were severed by slavery, their history whitewashed or ignored. In Ghana, there's a chance to reclaim that history, to re-root, to find pride in culture, language, tradition, things many African Americans were stripped of through centuries of oppression. Ghana offers more than symbolism. There are practical reasons too. The cost of living is often lower. You can rent a beautiful home in Accra for what you'd pay for a studio apartment in Los Angeles. Food is organic, fresh, and affordable. Education options for children are growing. And private schools in Ghana often offer rigorous academic standards. Healthcare is accessible and improving. And while challenges do exist like bureaucracy, infrastructure, and occasional power outages, many say the trade-off is worth it. There's also the promise of citizenship. Ghana offers something very few countries in the world do: the possibility of dual citizenship for people of African descent. Since 2016, hundreds of African Americans have been granted citizenship by presidential decree. Others are going through legal residency and naturalization processes. There's a visible effort to build bridges between Africa and its lost sons and daughters. And the welcome is warm. While no place is perfect and Ghana has its own issues, the reception African Americans receive is largely positive. Locals are often curious, open, and supportive. There are cultural differences, yes, but there's also mutual respect and shared history. In many ways, African Americans become both guests and returning family at the same time. That community is growing. Two entire neighborhoods of returnees are forming. Social clubs, expat meetups, churches, online groups, and even Pan-African business ventures are bringing people together. Support systems are evolving to help newcomers adjust, deal with homesickness, or navigate unfamiliar systems. Digital creators are playing a big role as well. YouTube is full of vlogs documenting the journey, videos titled "Why I Moved to Ghana," "Day in the Life in Accra," or "Cost of Living in Ghana Compared to New York." These videos provide real insight, dispel myths, and empower others to consider the move. It's migration in the digital age, community building one upload at a time. Of course, it's not just Ghana. Other African nations are seeing similar interests: Senegal, the Gambia, Rwanda, South Africa. But Ghana holds a special place because of its historical role and vocal invitation. It is positioning itself as a gateway for the global Black diaspora. Yet not everything is easy. There are challenges: bureaucratic delays, language barriers, Twi and other local languages, cultural misunderstandings, and navigating land ownership laws. Corruption and slow government services can frustrate newcomers. But the difference is this: for many African Americans, it's a challenge worth facing. Because unlike in the US, they aren't facing these struggles with the added weight of racism, profiling, or generational trauma. They are fighting to build, not fighting to survive. For the first time in their lives, many African Americans are imagining a future not in the shadows of oppression, but in the sunlight of possibility. They're rediscovering who they are without the weight of constant racial tension. They're watching their children grow up with confidence. They're reclaiming joy. This isn't just a geographic move, it's a spiritual return. And it's only the beginning. For many who have already made the move, the transition to Ghana is more than just a relocation. It's a rebirth. It's not just about changing location, it's about rewriting identity. This part of the story is deeply personal, deeply spiritual, and deeply necessary to understand. Those who settle in Ghana often speak of a profound inner shift. They begin to heal in ways they never expected. The trauma of always being othered, of being constantly on alert in American society, begins to ease. In its place comes peace, not perfection, but peace. That alone is powerful enough to drive thousands across oceans. And yet, the journey isn't always smooth. Leaving the US is often bittersweet. Many leave behind family members, jobs, and decades of familiarity. The move to Ghana requires courage, patience, and the willingness to unlearn and relearn, socially, culturally, even emotionally. Some arrive and face culture shock. Things work differently in Ghana. Bureaucracy can be slow, power outages are common, and the concept of Ghana time, where schedules are loose and things move at a more relaxed pace, can frustrate newcomers accustomed to rigid systems. But over time, many returnees begin to see these flaws as features. Life slows down, but that slowness becomes space for reflection, for connection, for clarity. They're not just escaping the racial trauma of the West. They're stepping into a life defined by something more human, more grounded. Take, for example, Janelle and Marcus, a couple from Baltimore who relocated to Ghana with their 2 children. They left behind high-paying jobs and a house in the suburbs. "We were exhausted," Janelle says. "Everything felt like a grind, and It always came with that extra layer of racial tension. We wanted our kids to grow up where they wouldn't constantly feel like they had to prove their worth just to exist. Now living in East Legon, Accra, the family runs a small cafe serving Afro-vegan meals. Their kids attend a bilingual school, and Marcus teaches music at a local arts center. They say it's not always easy, but it's meaningful. And that's what they were missing back in the US, meaning Ghana isn't a perfect utopia. Like every country, it has its problems: economic disparity, political friction, and infrastructure gaps. But for many African Americans, those issues feel different when you're not constantly targeted for your skin color, name, or natural hair. Here, they're simply people, not black, not minority, not African American, just human. This psychological liberation is difficult to describe to those who've never lived in a country where they are the majority. It's subtle but powerful. It affects everything: the way people speak to you, the way you walk into a store, how you're treated at the bank, the absence of that low-level anxiety that simmers in the background of daily life in the USONE. Returnee described it perfectly. In America, I was always looking over my shoulder. Here in Ghana, I look forward. Many are also drawn to the economic opportunities. Africa is rising, and Ghana is one of its bright spots. The tech scene is growing, tourism is rebounding, and foreign investment is rising. African Americans are bringing with them skills, capital, and ideas. They're opening restaurants, launching fashion brands, starting tech startups, creating media platforms, and building schools. The Ghanaian government has taken notice. Following the success of the Year of Return, Ghana launched Beyond the Return, a 10-year initiative focused on deepening diaspora engagement. It includes promoting investment, tourism, cultural exchange, and long-term residency. The government understands that African Americans aren't just visitors. They're potential partners in the country's development. And Ghana is becoming more than just a safe haven. It's becoming a place to thrive. Land ownership is another key point. While the process can be complicated, many returnees are buying property, often at a fraction of the cost of US real estate. Some are building homes in the countryside. Others are developing eco-lodges, beach resorts, and farm-to-table businesses. They're planting roots, not just in soil, but in society. There's also the powerful element of ancestral reconnection. Many African Americans grow up with a painful void, knowing their ancestors were from Africa, but not knowing where or who. DNA tests, cultural research, and oral history are helping to bridge that gap. Ghana offers them a tangible link: walking the beaches of Elmina, seeing the dungeons at Cape Coast Castle, hearing the drums during traditional ceremonies. It's history coming alive, painful but healing. Some find villages that welcome them back as lost sons and daughters. Others participate in naming ceremonies, receive local names, and are embraced by chiefs and elders. It's not performative, it's restorative. There are also spiritual dimensions. Many African Americans explore traditional African spirituality, learn about ancestral worship, or blend Christian faith with local customs. Religion becomes less about assimilation and more about connection. It's not about rejecting Western faith, it's about reclaiming African identity within it. And perhaps the most moving stories come from children. Kids who were bullied in American schools for their skin color or hair now walk proudly in their melanin. They see themselves reflected in their teachers, leaders, and history books. They are no longer the exception. They are the norm. That shift alone is transformative. Parents say their children are growing up happier, freer, more confident. One mother explained, "In the US, my daughter came home crying because her classmates made fun of her for being dark-skinned. Here in Ghana, she's called beautiful every single day." That's something I can't put a price on. As the movement grows, so does awareness. Books, podcasts, documentaries, and conferences now focus on repatriation to Africa. People are doing their research, connecting online, and planning smart moves. This isn't a trend, it's a long overdue return. But there's still resistance. Some critics argue that moving to Africa is running away from America's problems. But those who've left see it differently. They argue that centuries of fighting for change in America hasn't always produced results for Them choosing Ghana isn't about giving up, it's about choosing themselves. Others worry about whether returnees will integrate respectfully. Ghana is not a blank canvas. It has its own people, cultures, and systems. The best returnees are those who arrive ready to listen, learn, and contribute, not to impose. And this is where the real beauty of the movement lies. It's not about abandoning one identity for another. It's about integration. Diaspora and homeland, African American and African, the blending of stories, dreams, and futures. The conversation is also global. The movement of African-descended people returning to Africa is mirrored in Caribbean nations, Latin American communities, and even Afro-Europeans who feel disconnected from their roots. Ghana is becoming a symbol, a starting point, a beacon. So, what's next as more African Americans relocate? The movement will evolve. Challenges will arise, but so will communities, schools tailored for diaspora kids, businesses that merge African style with American service, cultural events, wellness, retreats, tech incubators. The possibilities are endless already. You can see the future taking shape in the Ghanaian American fusion restaurants popping up, in the homeschooling networks led by returning mothers, in the Afrofuturist art exhibitions exploring identity through paint and sound. The truth is this: Ghana is not just a country on a map anymore. It's becoming a symbol of return, of healing, of possibility. And in a world where being black often comes with a burden, Ghana offers something rare, a place to just be. Not a place free of hardship, but a place free of the kind of systemic degradation that's so deeply rooted in American soil. Not a place without problems, but a place where those problems are not defined by race. Too many African Americans. That's worth everything. So they are choosing Ghana. Not because America doesn't matter to them, but because Ghana does.